It's Johnny Two-Face here, back with another reaction video. This time I'm reacting to the Ottoman Empire before the Siege of Constantinople 1389 to 1451 document. It's a documentary by House of History, and if you haven't seen me react to the video How and Where Did the Ottoman Empire Originate From, I suggest you check that video out before checking this one out, which is also done by House of History, I should add. But the usual disclaimer when I react to anything historical, if I don't show so much what is considered a proper reaction, it is probably obvious I don't know much about the subject at hand, and if I do know anything, I'll most likely pause the video to give my input or ask any curious questions, which hopefully will be answered in the comments below. With that being said, the link to the original video will be in the description down below. Please go and subscribe to House of History. They're another great history channel here on YouTube, and I believe House of History deserves more support. So, I'm not going to ramble on too much longer. Just to keep it short and sweet, I don't know much about the Ottoman Empire, and there's not much more I can add, so that's on the screen, captions are on. Right, let's get into this.
3 decades after the Ottomans seized the first territory in Europe, the Gallipoli Peninsula, they crushed a collective crusading effort at the 1389 Battle of Kosovo. 29-year-old Bayezid succeeded his father after his death in battle. Nicknamed the Thunderbolt for his decisiveness, he captured the Serbian Emperor Lazar and had him beheaded as retribution. He installed Lazar's son Stefan Lazarevic as a loyal Serbian vassal and married his sister to ensure loyalty. But he could not stay in the area for long. On the Anatolian Peninsula, an invasion by the hostile Karaman tribe, a powerful contender in the region, loomed.
Wow. Again, this is another thing that could face empires at any point, is facing two fronts. Because there's been much contention in the Anatolian Peninsula since the fall of the Seljuks.
Already under Murad, the Ottomans purchased the territories of the Hamid, and Bayezid's marriage to a Jermean princess provided him with their territory. This led to a shared border with the Karamanids, led by Bayezid's brother-in-law Aladdin Bey. Fearful of the ever-expanding Ottomans, he established an anti-Ottoman alliance. Taking the initiative, Bayezid returned from Rumelia and marched his army to the east. He annexed Dermian, which had been lost to a Karamanid invasion, and conquered Aydin. Meanwhile, he also defeated the emirates of Saruhan and Mantasия, giving the Ottomans access to the entire western coastline of Anatolia. Finally, he conquered the Beylik of Isfendiyar before the news reached him of insubordinations by his Balkan vassals. In the subsequent war, he put his vassals back in line. Bulgaria got the brunt of his wrath. In 1393, he successfully besieged the empire's capital, Tarnovo, before trekking northward towards Wallachia. Its voivode, Mircea the Elder, was a Hungarian vassal and fled to Hungary. Besieging and capturing Nicopolis, Bayezid had Shishman executed. While campaigning in Bulgaria, he also launched a blockade against Constantinople. Hungarian King Sigismund, pleas to other Christian rulers were fruitful at last, and he was able to organize a multi-ethnic crusade. Receiving news of the crusade, Bayezid hastily raised an army and advanced onto the Crusader encampment. In September 1396, the armies faced each other at Nicopolis. The Ottomans decisively crushed the Crusaders, cementing their control south of the Danube. One of the few surviving prisoners of war, Johann Schildberger, described the aftermath as such.
Then each was ordered to kill his own prisoners, and the king appointed others in their place for those who did not wish to do so. Then they took my companions and cut off their heads, and when it came to my turn, the king's son saw me and ordered that I should be left alive. And I was taken to the other boys, because none under 20 years of age were killed, and I was scarcely 16 years old.
Wow.
The Ottoman victory ended the Second Bulgarian Empire. Resistance continued under Ivan's son and his cousin until 1422, but the empire was never reinstated.
After Nicopolis.
Thanks to Bayezid's success in subduing his European vassals and Turkic tribes on Anatolia, and by defeating the Crusaders, he finally could dedicate all his might to Constantinople. Meanwhile, cities such as Edirne and Bursa grew into international trading hubs, and the Rumelian salt and metal mines ensured a steady stream of significant income. To the east, Aladdin continued the provocations, and in 1398 Bayezid marched an army to the Karamanid capital, Konya. His campaign was merciless but rapid. He executed Aladdin and annexed his territory. Another thorn in Bayezid's eastern side was the Eretnid dynasty under Qadi Burhan al-Din. His territory was annexed later that year, with its capital Sivas symbolizing the Ottomans' most eastern frontier. Fearing the Ottoman might, Byzantine Emperor Manuel II traveled to European courts to secure support, but little did he know that the eventual relief of Constantinople would not come because of Christian intervention. In fact, when he returned in 1403, the dynamic on Anatolia had changed significantly. To understand what happened, we have to look at the east of the empire. Because in Central Asia, Timur had been expanding his emerging Turco-Mongol empire for 3 decades. He had set his eyes on India, invading it in 1398, but the rapid expansion of the Ottomans made him question whether heading east was the right move. Moreover, multiple dethroned Turkic beys fled to his court and encouraged him to take up arms against Bayezid. They certainly helped his decision-making. Deciding to subdue the Ottomans, he abandoned his India expedition, gathered a large army, and traveled west. In 1400, he captured the city of Sivas, making sure Bayezid heard of the victory. Receiving news about Timur's invasion, Bayezid broke off the blockade of Constantinople and prepared for battle. For now, the Byzantine city was spared. It was around the end of the harvest season, and Bayezid ignored his advisors' pleas to wait for Timur's army at Ankara. Instead, Bayezid moved east with his army. After a long, useless march, Timur's army reached Ankara first. Bayezid received the news and returned a march which took 2 days. When he arrived at Ankara, his 85,000-strong army was in a poor state, while Timur's had ample time to line up his 140,000-strong. In July 1402, the parties clashed. The former beys of Aydin, Saruhan, Mentesh, and Jeremian augmented Timur's army. Bayezid's soldiers recognized many of their former leaders fighting in Timur's army, and desertion became no rare occurrence. His Serbian vassals held firm, but the numerically superior army eventually decimated the Ottomans. By nighttime, Bayezid was only left with 300 men when he was captured. After that, the mighty Sultan was at Timur's mercy. In the aftermath, Timur's troops marched west, plundering many Ottoman territories, besieging and plundering cities such as Bursa. Bayezid was shipped around Ottoman territories on display before passing away a few months later. To contemporaries, it must have seemed like Timur had demolished the Ottoman Empire. Following Bayezid's capture and death, over a decade of power struggle among his sons followed. Already during his lifetime, Suleiman Celebi governed the European territories, while his brother Isa Celebi ruled western Anatolia. Prince Mehmed retained parts in the east. Suleiman quickly contacted his Balkan vassals, curbing any potential insubordination. Still, using Suleiman's weakened position, Manuel II managed to relieve Byzantium's vassal status and gained Thessalonica. In the east, young Mehmed set his eyes on what he undoubtedly perceived as his rightful throne. In 1404, he marched into Bursa, dethroning his brother Isa, who fled to Rumelia through Byzantine lands. It is assumed Isa died a few years later, potentially murdered. Soon after, Suleiman sailed to Anatolia and captured Bursa and Ankara. Mehmed retreated to Tokat, where he propped up his brother Musa to meet the Wallachian vassal Murcia and gain his support. This initially ended in disaster. Musa did manage to get Murcia to support him, but Suleiman defeated him at the Battle of Phosmidion. Chroniclers reveal that Suleiman grew complacent after this victory. Rapidly losing supporters, Musa tried his luck again 1 year later and marched onto Edirne. With barely any supporters left.
This might be slightly off topic, but I believe at some point in the last video I did mention that part of the Ottomans were known for taking Christian boys and taking them and, pressing them into their service, literally forcing them to convert to Islam and join their ranks as a lot of them were Janissaries, which is the Sultan's elite soldiers of the Ottoman Turks was the Janissaries. which at this time I think was one of the strongest, most elite soldiers the Eastern Europe has ever seen.
Suleiman was killed
Could be wrong.
in an attempt to flee. Contrary to expectations, Musa proclaimed himself Sultan of the Ottomans.
Wow.
Angered by this perceived betrayal, Mehmed declared war. At the 1413 Battle of Kamerlu, he beat Musa, killing him during an attempt to flee. Mehmed now proclaimed himself the legitimate Sultan. The remainder of Mehmed's reign saw multiple pretenders attempting to seize the throne and a 4-year major popular revolt under the mystic Sheikh Bedreddin.
Wow.
During the 8 remaining years, he captured parts of Albania, Greece, and several beyliks on the western Anatolian coast, who declared their independence after the Battle of Ankara.
Sultan Murad II.
Before his death, Mehmed blinded his nephew Orhan and sent his 2 sons as hostages to Constantinople. He did all this for his oldest son Murad to enjoy a smooth transition of power. Murad would reign over the empire for 30 years. He made serious
It's not often you hear like a smooth transition to power.
incursions against Christian territories, particularly weakening Constantinople.
Wow.
When he besieged the city in 1422, it was like a great dress rehearsal for the eventual conquest a bit over 3 decades later. Murad had learned from the past besiegement mistakes and utilized siege.
Well, you think Constantinople was known for its double walls, and until this point had never fallen. Even the Huns were tempted to try and siege Constantinople, but eventually got tempted west to the Western Roman Empire. But I got a video on my channel describing the Huns, and again, to my shame, what I know about Huns, especially the Attila the Hun, was through the game Age of Empires 2. God, I'm showing my age. It just shows I'm in my mid-30s.
To better the city's strong fortifications. But within a year he abandoned the siege, concluded a truce with Byzantium, severely impeding its trading routes, forcing it to pay tribute, and he once again set his eyes on Europe. Hungary and Venice, worried about the resurgence of the Ottoman Empire, hoped they could pry its vassals Wallachia and Serbia to rise up. Assuming they would, Murad invaded both Wallachia and Serbia, crushing any potential resistance. Before too long, the Sultan twisted Wallachia's arms into vassalage. In 1427, the Serbian Stefan Lazarevic died, and King Sigismund quickly captured the strategically located Belgrade. Murad conquered Gulabac and concluded a treaty with Hungary confirming these new acquisitions. The new Serbian despot Đuro Branković was forced to pay tribute to Murad. To ensure his loyalty, Murad married Brankovic's daughter. In 1430, he recaptured Thessaloniki and began the process of subduing Albania right after. Considering the size of the territory and the internal divisions between local chieftains, it should have been an easy task. But instead, one of the Ottomans' commanders defected at the 1443 Battle of Niš. This George Castrioti returned to his ancestral homeland, assuming the name Skanderbeg, and led a 25-year-long revolt against the Ottomans with considerable success. Withstanding a Karamanid invasion while preoccupied in the Balkan, Mehmed managed to gain some minor acquisitions in Anatolia. The majority of his reign was focused on expanding into the Balkan, however. After a military expedition through Wallachia into Transylvania, he besieged the Serbian Smederevo and Belgrade. Doubling as his father-in-law, Branković fled to Hungary, tirelessly requesting aid against the marauding Ottomans. A relief force under János Hunyadi was unsuccessful. Smederevo was captured after 3 months, although Belgrade withstood Murad's besiegement. Emboldened by his success, Murad invaded.
And of course, for those who don't know, Wallachia is now in what is now modern-day Romania. And it's also known where you hear about the stories of Vlad the Impaler.
Transylvania in 1442. Hunyadi, the voivode, fought them at Hermannstadt and repelled them.
Wow.
Meanwhile, using diplomacy, Hunyadi appealed to other European kings and princes to join him in an anti-Ottoman crusade. Successfully so. The so-called Long Campaign was a military campaign that saw crusaders capture Niš, Kruševac, and even Sofia before returning to Belgrade due to the severe winter. In the background, Branković organized the 1444 Peace of Szeged, which returned Smederevo to him. This truce ensured a decade of ceasing hostilities between the Hungarians and Ottomans, allowing Murat to focus on internal consolidation and expanding trading routes, hubs, and silver and salt mines in Rumelia. Nevertheless, raids continued at the borders of Serbia and Transylvania, and at least internal consolidation was expected. But instead, Murat abdicated in favor of his 12-year-old son Mehmed. Historians still struggle to explain this act to this day. This, in combination with positive feedback on the long campaign, emboldened the Hungarian party to organize another crusade, disregarding the Peace of Szeged. Hunyadi broke his oath and organized another crusader force. He embarked with his king Vladislav, Vlad Dracul's son, and Rome's legate Cardinal Cesarini to once and for all expel the Ottomans from Europe. Skanderbeg too pledged his support, but Brankovic figured his best bet to retain his territories was by remaining neutral, and either he or local Ottoman commanders blocked Skanderbeg from sending his troops to support the Crusaders' army. Troops from the Papal States did not arrive either, not a great start. Mehmed received information of the impending attack and summoned his father to assume command over the Ottoman army. Chronicles reveal he wrote him,
"If you are the Sultan, come and lead your armies. If I am the Sultan, I hereby order you to come and lead my armies."
Outnumbering the Crusaders 4-1, they met at Varna in November 1444. Although the battle initially developed promising for the Crusaders, Vladislav was lulled into a false sense of security and was assassinated by Janissaries. Displaying the king's head on a spear, the Crusaders quickly deteriorated into a rout. Cesarini too was killed, and Hunyadi only barely escaped with his life.
Battle of Kosovo.
The aftermath of Varna was debilitating for the Ottoman enemies. Hunyadi spent the next few years improving the domestic instability of Hungary. He even dethroned Vlad II Dracul of Wallachia, who became recalcitrant after Varna and concluded peace with the Ottomans, allowing them to use Wallachia as a springboard to raid into Transylvania. Things weren't calm within the Ottoman Empire either. An uprising of Janissaries, most likely caused by Mehmed's fiscal policies, forced him to abdicate and his father to retake control. Mehmed retreated to Manisa, while Murat took revenge against the people who supported the oathbreakers of Szeged. In 1446, he annexed the Peloponnese and made some territorial gains in Albania. But before he could annex more territories, news reached him from Rome. After managing to convince both Hunyadi and Skanderbeg to take up arms against the Sultan, the Pope had declared yet another crusade. Hunyadi and his vassal Vladislav II of Wallachia raised an army, crossed the Danube, and marched towards Kosovo. Murat took Mehmed with him. It would be the future Sultan's first time of actually seeing combat. Commanding an army outnumbering the Crusaders 2-1, they moved towards the west. In 1448, at Kosovo Polje, Murat faced Hunyadi's army. The armies clashed in a battle which would last for 3 days. During the battle, Hunyadi's Wallachian allies abandoned him. During their retreat, Janissaries slew most Hungarian nobles. Hunyadi once again barely escaped, retreating to the north. To top it all off, the battered Crusaders' army received news that in Vladislav's absence, the Ottomans installed a pretender to the Wallachian throne, Vlad III Dracula, also known as the Impaler.
There it is, the picture of Vlad the Impaler.
As Hunyadi returned to Hungary, Brankovic captured and imprisoned him.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but also most of the Balkans were under Ottoman control until World War I. With, I think, got some help from Russia, because a lot of this became the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Yeah. Oh, oops.
He demanded a hefty ransom for his release. Instead of helping his lord, Vladislav marched an army into Wallachia and managed to drive out Dracula, at least for now. It was the beginning of deterioration in relations between Hungary and their Wallachian vassal, a struggle that became beneficial to the Ottomans later on. As for Murat, his final years were uneventful. The victory at Kosovo was one for the history books and cemented Ottoman control in the region. He passed away 3 years later, and his ambitious son succeeded him as Sultan Mehmed II. And this Mehmed now looked at one of the greatest objects to conquer to restore his authority and confirm his independence, he was looking at Constantinople. Thank you very much for watching
Wow.
this video. If there's a topic or event you would like to know more about, let me know your thoughts in the comments.
And that'll do it. Another interesting video here by House of History, and yeah, and that's another thing that doesn't get talked about the Ottomans is the battles beforehand of Constantinople. Well, I haven't heard anyone mention them, but again, that's by the by. So not really much I can add. So if you like this reaction, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.